The announcement by the Department of Public Enterprises of a new board of directors at Eskom has sparked hope that things may improve at the country's power utility. And the move was speculated on early last week following a meeting that was held on Tuesday between the Department of Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan and the last 6 remaining members, which went down to 5 members after the resignation of Busi Mavuso immediately after the meeting of the board. Now, according to the DPE, the terms of the board expired in 2021 and was subject to a review. Meanwhile, the struggling power utility has announced that Stage 3 rolling blackouts will continue to be implemented until 5 a.m. on Thursday. And it says that the continued load shedding is due to a shortage of generation capacity because of the persistently high levels of breakdowns of units at some of the power station. Energy analyst Ted Blom joins us now for a discussion on these latest developments and the country's energy crisis. Ted, good to see you again. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning.
So let me first get your reaction to the new board. And perhaps, if you will, please tell us who these new board members are and what they bring to the table.
Okay, let's try. So I think it's a welcome appointment that they've now reshuffled the board, or in fact replaced most of the board, barring one person, because it was very clear to everybody that the old board certainly wasn't either performing or wasn't able to get Eskom to perform according to standards. So it was high time that something had to happen. Now, to get to the new board, they seem to have a bigger variety of backgrounds or qualifications. But I'm very disappointed that the minister, in his appointment announcement, didn't indicate what portfolio he had assigned the specific directors to attend to, because we all know that Eskom's in a crisis. We all know that about the death spiral. We've all heard about the difficulties within Eskom day by day and excuse after excuse. And I would have thought that, given that Eskom is in crisis mode, and we're talking about terms like the war room and all sorts of military type of connotations, I would have thought that as an ex-military leader myself, that the minister would have said, okay, you guys, you form a subcommittee, you're looking after generation. You guys, you're looking after sabotage. You guys are looking after employee health and numbers and so on. And so that each person can be held responsible for a particular area of Eskom's problems. What you got now is you've got a couple of people, and you haven't given them a designation as to what they're supposed to focus on. And most of these people, other than Dr. Crompton, who's now been, who survived the shuffle, each of those people are new to Eskom. They're new to the energy domain or the energy sector. So you again throwing people in at the deep end, and I'm surprised. I mean, if I was appointed on that basis with the background of the people that have been appointed, I wouldn't have accepted the appointment, because you've got to have in this very difficult situation, you need to have very clear guidelines as to what's going on. Secondly, let's get to the Eskom management situation. We are now sick and tired of hearing Coburg Unit 1 is off, Coburg Unit 2 is off, Medupi number 4 is blown up, Matla number 2 is giving problems. What I'm going to suggest, this is in a positive mode, and it's time that the stakeholders get together and raise their voices, and that the shareholder, the Department of Public Enterprises, realize that we might be critical, but we want this situation fixed. So we are positive about our contributions to this exercise, and they must stop seeing us as being antagonistic or difficult or whatever. We didn't put Eskom in this mess situation. The ANC did, with this caterer deployment, etc., and mismanagement of state-owned enterprises. So what I'm going to suggest is that on a weekly basis, Eskom gives us a list of each power station with each unit, and a health report on the condition of each unit in each power station. Then they can stop with all the excuses. They can just update that list, and we can see, we, the public, the stakeholders, the people who are paying for this electricity that's not available, we can then see on a weekly basis whether we are going forwards or whether we are going backwards. And we can stop the lies and the innuendo and all this nonsense. And we need to get clear communication channels so that we, as business leaders, can plan for the week. I mean, I've got people phoning me every week. What load shedding are we going to have next week? Will there be any load shedding? Will it be worse? Will it be better? I can't tell you because I don't know. Eskom is opaque. They're not transparent in where they are and what they're aiming to achieve. They tell us they work 24/7, which is a lie anyway. You wouldn't be washing your car on a Friday morning if you're working 24/7. And secondly, I mean, we need to know what the mandate is. Is the mandate to get all the units fixed up? Because more than 15 units are currently parked and have been parked for the best part of the last year, if not longer. And if we are crying about a shortfall of units, of generating capacity, why have we parked units and we haven't resuscitated them or taken them out of mothballs? Why are they still parked? On paper, Eskom's got 52 gigawatts plus of electricity availability or capacity. What's happened to the missing 20 gigawatts? And Minister Mantashe is on the right page. He's on the money. He's asking exactly the same question. And I take my hat off to the fact that he's actually got the actual guts to actually ask those difficult questions. So it's time for us to firstly get more transparency into this thing. Secondly, it's time for the board to actually roll its sleeves up, because normally a board doesn't get involved in the internal affairs of the organization. But because we're in crisis mode, because we're in a war room, hopefully this board has got the wherewithal to roll up their sleeves, take a portfolio and say, I'm going to focus on this portfolio in the interest of South Africa. I'm going to focus on this portfolio and I won't rest until this portfolio is ticking properly. And then we'll get some confidence in the board and some confidence hopefully back into Eskom, because the whole issue is a trust deficit. We didn't put Eskom in this trust deficit. They put themselves into this trust deficit. They were lying to the public. They've been misleading the public. They're making all sorts of excuses, which are half of which are invalid. So basically, that's my take on where we are at the moment.
So, Ted, the outgoing board has been criticized for lacking the technical skills in the main to provide the type of oversight on the technical aspects of Eskom's turnaround plans. And now we see we've just put up a list of the members, new members of the board, and they are said to have the necessary technical skills. But how and to what extent, firstly, will the effectiveness of the board improve that crisis at Eskom? And secondly, if you look at that list and you look at the skill set that they bring to the table, the engineers on that list, do they bring the requisite engineering skill set to Eskom? And also, there was criticism about too many lawyers and accountants, and we see quite a few of them again on this particular board.
Okay, so yes, at least we've got some engineers on the board. It's a pity we don't have an engineer CEO, because then it would have facilitated the communication process, that everybody's on the same page. Now, the problem with the engineers that I've got is none of them are energy engineers. None of them are electrical engineers. So it's like saying, this guy's a pilot. But a pilot doesn't fly every single aircraft under the sun. He doesn't fly a helicopter, for instance, if he's a small or a single-engine pilot, etc. So, yes, an engineer is not an engineer, is an engineer. There are different types of engineers. They are differentiated. As well as, it's like the legal guys. Some of them are focused on family law, others focus on property law, but very few of them focus on energy law. So you can't just say, well, the fact that I've appointed an engineer, that's the end of the game because I can tick that box. No, it doesn't work like that. And that's something that seems to me the ANC, in their deployment strategy, have never woken up to, is that every skill set is a little bit different from other skill sets. And just because you've got some technical background, the qualification, doesn't make you Evel Knievel that you can do everything, or MacGyver, or whoever you subscribe to. So the bottom line is that, no, this board is still going to have to learn. And that's the problem, is we're in a war room situation, and we've got a board that doesn't have energy experience and doesn't have Eskom experience, save for Clive Leroux and Dr. Crompton. Dr. Clive comes from Eskom and has been there for quite a long time. And Dr. Crompton has been at NERSA for quite a long time. So other than those two, the rest are all novices to the game.
So the issue of load shedding, of course, is top of mind for everybody in South Africa and those visiting the country as well. And putting an end to load shedding, Ted, seems to be a moving target. Government and Eskom giving different timeframes that have passed, and the latest is that load shedding will now be resolved in the next 12 months. Some analysts, however, are forecasting that the end of load shedding could only be in 2024. So what's your take on that?
Okay, so yes, you're right. It's probably very confusing for Joe Soap and the public. And more so when the minister now also announcing load shedding levels. Last week he announced that it would be level 4 for until midweek this week. I mean, it would be best if everybody just tries to just be a little bit respectful and stay in their path. But nevertheless, yes, the reason there's confusion because Eskom on the one hand says they're going to do this. So then we make an estimate as to what the impact of that will be and whether it will actually alleviate the load shedding. Then the next week Eskom says, no, they're going to change their strategy, they're going to do this. And then, of course, it requires a recalculation or reassessment of what the likelihood is of load shedding. The bottom line is, given all the complaints that Eskom has made, given that they are without money, given that they are without skills, given that they are without coal, which they were supposed to have sorted out in 2007 when I was back at Eskom to help to plan the coal roadmap until 2030. Nothing has been done. Brian Dahmer said he's going to open 40 new coal mines. Eskom has opened 0, not one single coal mine. So, yes, there is a major disparity between what has been said and what happens on the ground. So if nothing happens, if it's ceteris paribus, as the economists would call it, then we are going to see load shedding forever and a day. And that seems to be where we are heading under the current tangent. Not enough credible issues are being tackled and not enough credible actions are being taken. However, Beirut lost its full electricity capacity because of that fertilizer bomb in the harbor about 2 years ago. My colleagues who I approached Eskom with in writing more than 2 years ago when they were complaining about shortfall in capacity, regenerated the power situation in Beirut within 7 days. Within 7 days, Beirut was fully restored to full power. Those same guys and myself made a proposal to Eskom that if you're short of generating capacity, we will deliver generating capacity. We will deliver the shortfall within 90 days. It will give you the space to sort out your mismanagement and resuscitate the plant that you haven't kept in working order. We can do that for 3 years or 5 years. An emergency should really not, if you're half competent, an emergency should not endure for that period. And certainly not for 20 years like the car power ship solution was supposed to be, because that was clearly out of the water. So there are solutions, and if the solutions are implemented, if my solution was implemented, we could give you a categorical undertaking that provided Eskom does what is necessary on the other plant, our additional plant of 5 gigawatts or 6 gigawatts within 90 days would stop the load shedding immediately. Immediately. And if you look at the cost, let's just spend 1 minute on the cost of load shedding. The cost of load shedding conservatively is estimated at 100 Rand a kilowatt hour. My estimate, my personal estimate, is 5 times higher because of the disruptive effect, which is not measured by the economists, and the psychological impact, which is not measured by the economists. But nevertheless, so the fiscus, out of every hour of load shedding, is losing 15 Rands worth of VAT, if my calculations are right. And if you don't agree with me, please tell me. So we've got 85 Rand of loss available still from the load shedding. If the extra capacity generation costs 3 Rand or 5 Rand, let's make it 5 Rand more, then that money should come from the fiscus, not from Eskom and not from the stakeholders. We didn't cause the problem. But the fiscus is the one who's losing the VAT. So anything less than 15 Rand, the fiscus is still scoring because he's getting the VAT. So that's why I'm saying, even if it costs a bit more, let the fiscus, the tax man, let him contribute to the party because he's one of the biggest losers in this whole equation. And he's got 15 Rand that he's losing out of every kilowatt hour that's load shedded. So he's got 15 Rand to so-called play with and contribute to sorting out the load shedding. And if you look at it out of the box, I mean, I didn't actually want to go into detail, and it's not my job to educate the board of Eskom and the ministry and the government. But nevertheless, that is one possible solution that leaves you in a win-win situation. And as I said at the beginning of our conversation, I'm going to try and keep this polite and very positive. So there are solutions. But then you need to put capable people in the driving seat who actually can think out of the box and who can actually table some cogent solution or proposals.
Okay, so you said quite a bit there. Quite apart from what may be construed as a conflict of interest on your part, are you saying that Eskom actually has options that would put an end to load shedding immediately?
Absolutely, within 90 days. And those were tabled to Eskom more than 3 years ago. And the senior manager that was delegated to follow up on this said to me, "Hey, Teddy, good to see you again. Watch this space." Now, it's more than 2 years that I'm still watching this space, and it's getting darker by the hour.
And of course, if you look at what's been said by Atat Montalto, the head of capital markets at Intellidex, now he has reportedly warned that things are likely to get worse and that we could see stage 6 to 8 load shedding between October and February next year. So could that be a reality that from this month we'll be ramped up to stage 6 or 8?
Again, it all depends on what actions Eskom actually take. But if they carry on like they are at the moment, certainly stage 8 would be conservative, and we could head for a big meltdown. I mean, Eskom has never been closer to the cliff than it has been in the last month or so. So yes, I think I agree with Mr. Montalto to the extent that if Eskom does nothing or carries on with the mishaps that they're currently performing, yes, those load shedding levels are a very good possibility, or a very high possibility, not good, a very high possibility. So that's why it's imperative that everybody who's involved. Forget about me. I'm too old now, and that proposal that I put on the table has expired long ago. So I'm no longer a player and a referee. But then the other people must also stop being players and referees. And we must work together. As the president said, all the hands need to be on deck. And we need to, if we don't sort out this problem will sort us out. I can promise you that.
Okay, we've got a new board. Is Andre de Ruyter the right person to be heading the power utility?
Well, I was one of the initial skeptics, and I was castigated for having a negative view about the thing. It's not about a negative view. It's about what's fit for purpose. Mr. de Ruyter has now had nearly 3 years at the helm of Eskom. He's just complained time and time again. He's complained about being given a dead horse, and he's now the jockey. The jockey was a term I coined because de Ruyter in English means jockey. But the fact of the matter is this jockey has actually seemingly fallen off the horse because this horse is no longer in the race. At the current state, it's got no chance of even getting to the finishing line. So I would say that respectfully, Mr. de Ruyter should say, listen here, guys, I tried my best. The problem was bigger than I could surmount, and it's time for me to actually give it over to somebody who's got a better track record, somebody who's maybe got better skill set, better background. And I reluctantly, I mean, as much as I maybe enjoyed the highlight and the limelight of being in charge of Eskom, but for the sake of the country, the board needs to appoint somebody who's got a track record of fixing up Eskom, somebody who stopped the load shedding previously. Forget about the other misdemeanors. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't endorse whatever's gone wrong, but there are people, besides Mr. Koko, there are people who've got a deep Eskom experience and are capable of fixing up the load shedding very soon.
I would have asked you who, but we're going to overrun. We're already overrunning, so let's park it. Let's park it for today. Ted Blom, always a pleasure speaking to you. Thanks so much for your time this morning. Energy analyst Ted Blom there.